So we continue the relabel, reframe, refocus, and revalue. So step one, relabel. Put a meaning to your experience, especially experiences which are deceptive brain messages that are going away from your long-term goal and values. In other words, that the messages that comes to your brain, that they are actually taking you away on what the message is. It's away from your long-term goal and values. Those are deceptive messages. You put a meaning to it. For example, if you feel like you're worrying, you say, I'm feeling worrying right now. So you put a meaning to that feeling. You feel agitated, you say, I'm getting agitated right now. You feel anxious, you say, I'm getting anxious right now. You put a meaning to that feeling. Then you actually remind yourself how you are feeling right now by putting a label on it. So you relabel it from what it is. You relabel it for what it is the brain is trying to make you think it is. You relabel it and interpret it. That's step one. Step two is there are two major ways to reframing. One is to use mindful awareness and use the wise advocate. Dr. Schwartz calls the principles that you hold sacred and your logic, you, the awareness, wise advocate, that you can consult with it, with your values. Dr. Philipson calls it gatekeeper, and I call it superconsciousness. Either way, it's a way for you to have a backer, someone, something, that some entity, some point of reference that you will compare what's going on with your values, and you have a value system. You consult with that logic and those values and principles. So one is mindful awareness and use the wise advocate and consult with the wise advocate. But something that enhances doing that, becoming aware of the cognitive distortion. In Dr. Schwartz's book of You Are Not the Brain, there is a table of 8 cognitive distortions from which we mention 2 of them here. 2 classes. One is all or nothing. In other words, the way of all or nothing thinking is when you should be aware when you get into a black and white thinking. This is when you basically saying this is either great or this is terrible. There's no gray area. Be aware that you want to most of the time be able to think in some version of the gray zone. Certainly as a way of proceeding what you are thinking. So you don't want to get down on yourself by using all or nothing thinking, which basically has a tendency to throw the baby out with the bathwater. If it's not perfect, then it's terrible. That's the way some people conclude things. If it's not perfect, then it's terrible. If I 100% don't have any intrusive thought, and if it just happens to have some intrusive thought or a intrusive thought, then everything is terrible. And if I don't have it, then I'm perfect. That's a mentality, and that's a way to approach it. You should not. You do not want to approach that way. And he continues, says there is lots of things that aren't but can get better if you work with them, and recognizing all or nothing thinking as a cognitive distortion will prevent you from throwing the baby out with the bathwater. The other one, which is very important, is what we call emotional reasoning. Emotional reasoning is one where just because you feel something is wrong, you immediately jump into conclusion that something must be wrong. Just when you feel something is wrong, you take that feeling to be a reason for you to believe that something must be wrong because I feel something is wrong. That's also a dangerous way of thinking, because just because you feel something's wrong doesn't necessarily mean anything's wrong. Sometimes when you feel discouraged or disappointed or depressed, sad, suddenly the whole thing is gloomy, but really everything is the same as it was. It's not really gloomy, but you're using your feeling to be a reason that I don't feel things are right, therefore things must not be right. That's a bad way of allowing yourself to fall into that trap. It says, now it doesn't mean that you ignore what the feeling is, that sometimes something is wrong. In fact, you relabel the feeling that something's wrong. In other words, the feeling, you relabel it that it's telling me something is wrong. Like relabeling would be, I'm feeling that something is wrong. But then you frame it and reframe it to say, is this just a feeling or is something really wrong? Just because you feel something is wrong doesn't mean you should have a conclusion and believe that something must be wrong. You do the same thing, you relabel it. It says, I'm feeling that something is wrong. Then you say, you reframe it. Step 2, is this just a feeling or something is really wrong? You just reframed it. Then you think it through, you consult your wise advocate, so you don't make the cognitive distortion of confusing reality with your feelings and making jump to a conclusion, I feel like something is wrong, then something must be wrong. So if you focus on what he's trying to say, is that you question and relabel what is coming to your head, that I feel something is wrong. Then you reframe it. Do I feel something is wrong? Or is it really something is wrong? Now you're consulting with your wise advocate. You're recognizing this is a suggestion, but that doesn't mean just because it came to your head, it must be definitely something wrong. So you understand that this is a cognitive distortion, and you don't want to allow the cognitive distortion would confuse the reality with your feeling and jumping into conclusion that I feel something is wrong, therefore something must be wrong. So something might well be wrong, but it may not be the thing that you feel is wrong. And this helps you to again consult your wise advocate to think more clearly and relabel, reframe. These are the first 2 steps. Step 3 is